Well, everyone, the PSP 3000 was one of the last PSPs that we got that was like this standard type of model, and I think it was a really decent approach from, Sony. But it's funny because this was also one of the more interesting consoles because the PSP 2000 came out right before this, and I truly do feel like that was a pretty good successor to the original PSP, but there were lots of features built in with that original PSP that a lot of people still used specifically for modding and customizing and different things like that. And I think with the PSP 3000, which came out in 2008, so this thing is approaching like 15 years old now, which is insane. I definitely do look at a console like this, and I love the PSP lineup. I think they were amazing. I think that little comparison and competition between the PSP and the Nintendo DS was something that was so beautiful, and it was just one of my most favorite moments between any handheld consoles. And even though the PSP 3000 may not necessarily be the first console I would recommend buying anymore, I still think it was a very important console, and it just got discontinued in 2012. So it's been about 11 years since this thing has been discontinued. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing. Of course, if you want, buy the PlayStation Vita or something like that, but even then you don't have to. There's so many emulators out there that can do everything a PSP can do, so there's not even a big point of even using this thing anymore. Now, when this thing initially retailed for, it was about $250. So that was a pretty good price. I mean, it was still kind of expensive for that time. But if you think about it, the Nintendo Switch is still about $300 for the original one. The Nintendo Switch Lite is about $200. So you're actually, if you think about it, it's kind of interesting how the Switch Lite is cheaper than a PSP 3000 was back then. And the Nintendo Switch was only $50 more expensive than this thing, which is kind of interesting. I feel like you're getting a really good console with the Nintendo Switch versus the PSP 3000, which is also a good console. But I feel like you're getting more with the Nintendo Switch, if that makes any sense. Now, the big selling point of the PSP 3000 was that this thing had a pretty, good improvement with this screen. So apparently it was 5 times the contrast ratio, it had an increased color range, you had a better response time, it reduced ghosting and blurring effects, there was a microphone, there was a new disc tray design, a new button design and logos, and there was also an anti-reflective material over the display that actually allows you to go ahead and play outdoors a little bit more, which is honestly pretty cool. So there was just a lot of outer kind of design changes, which I think was pretty awesome and kind of needed. I think with the PSP 2000, it pretty much filled the need of pretty much every single thing that, Sony could have done at that moment. I feel like the biggest complaint of the original PSP was pretty much with its, just with its size. It was too thick and it was too big. And some people may have liked it, but I would say a majority of people who were like the casual gamers who want to take that console out with them to other areas, they pretty much weren't going to have that great of a time with the original PSP. And essentially with that PSP 3000, with it bringing some of those extra, display changes, some of the exterior changes as well, those things were kind of needed, and I definitely do like Sony for doing those types of things. But again, was it a massive change? I'm not really too sure. I think the PSP 2000 was a really big change. I think coming from the PSP 1000 and 1001 to the 2000, those were pretty big changes. You were getting basically more RAM, you were getting a faster console, which was awesome. You were getting USB charging, which in and of itself was pretty insane. You were getting a thinner console and so many other things. And apparently the PSP 2000 came out, a year before the PSP 3000? So it didn't really make even that much sense to even buy that one, to be honest. But I still like the PSP 3000 because it was still one of the last, it was an iterative update. So it was just a better version of the PSP 2000, even though if it wasn't that big. But the thing is that with the PSP 3000, that was one of the last, original styling PSPs that Sony sold. After that, they went straight into the PSP Go, which I don't even know why they even made this thing, but it was interesting. It wasn't that big of a deal. I feel like they should have kept the UMD slot, but they made the PSP Go. Then after that, they did end up making the PSP Street, which was kind of like a hybrid between it was like a cheaper version of a PSP. And I think that was kind of interesting. I don't even know how they came about that specific thing, but the PSP Street, I would probably say, was not the first console I'd recommend people to buy. So that's why I look at the PSP 3000 as probably one of the last, main PSPs that we kind of had out there. Now, I think this thing probably still is somewhat worth buying in this day and age. If you are playing it or if you're buying it just to play PSP games, you don't have to do it on here. You can just buy any sort of Android phone from the last 5 years. You could probably play any PSP game that you want to on it. There's also tons and tons of other devices, your MacBook, your PC, whatever you have. any device you have, even your iPhone, you can probably figure out how to get on there now. Like, you have that type of capability on these devices, which is awesome. But if you really want that original hardware, you can go for the PSP 3000 or you can go for the PSP 2000. Since that is a little bit of a cheaper console nowadays, you could probably pick up either one of those and you could probably have a really good time with it. So the choice is yours, but that's kind of how I see the PSP 3000 kind of holding up in 2023. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.